You're halfway through in the middle of the North Atlantic. Your sail rips in half. You look at each other as a crew and say, well, can't get off the boat. I'm in the middle of the ocean. What do we do now? Running a business and sailing are similar. It looks great from the shore, but once you're on the boat, it's pretty complicated.
Welcome to the Legacy Branding Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Beauprelant, here to guide you through the journey of selling your business and building a personal brand that leaves a lasting impact. On the show, we'll explore real-life founder stories, expert insights, and actionable strategies to help you navigate the transition, avoid post-sale crisis, and create your impact-driven legacy brand. Whether you're thinking of selling, building to sell, or already on the other side, this podcast is your go-to resource for making your next evolution your best one yet. Let's dive in. Today on the Legacy Branding Podcast, I'm joined by Shelby Hacala. He's a serial entrepreneur, business strategist, avid sailor, and the co-founder of the Boss 360 business operating system. Over the past 25 plus years, Shelby has founded 4 companies, including one he successfully sold to a global aerospace firm. A longtime member of both YPO and EO, he discovered his passion for coaching through his work as a forum facilitator. And then he went on to lead more than 600 sessions as a certified EOS implementer before co-founding Boss 360, a system designed to help leadership teams align, execute, and thrive in today's fast-changing world. Welcome to the show, Shelby.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to have a chat with you.
Yeah, me too. So we actually met earlier this year at an event called MMT with a group of entrepreneurs, and we were sitting side by side on a bus after sea kayaking, which was such a fun day. And we talked about our shared love of being on the water. And I remembered how passionate you are about sailing and the stories you shared and how you use the lessons and metaphors from sailing in your coaching work, which I absolutely love. So I wanted to start there and ask about sailing and how sailing has shaped how you lead, how you make decisions, and how you guide others through change.
Well, I love that to begin today's chat because it's certainly something that I am passionate about. And I always tell my friends that want to have a conversation with me around sailing is that, well, I think I have salt water running through my veins. And that is true from the fact of my ancestry. I come from a long line of ancestors that were master navigators from southern France. They would sail into the St. Lawrence River, do some whaling, and then go back. This is many, many, many years back before even Europeans settled in. So when I think about that, and I only learned this, by the way, probably when I was in my 40s, so not that long ago. My dad explained it to me. So I think that naturally I'm drawn to the water. And growing up, we didn't have a sailboat, but my dad would take me to yacht clubs. We would walk the docks and he would explain different boats and whatnot. And later in my life, I had a chance to purchase my own sailboat and I never looked back. It's a love affair that is something that I find challenging, yet from ashore looking to, let's say, a river or a lake or even on the oceans, watching someone sailing, it looks really great, but very few people, unless you've been sailing, understand all the difficulties and intricacies around sailing and all the prep work, etc. So you're mentioning that there's a lot of metaphors around running a business, and sailing are similar, where it looks great from the shore, but once you're on the boat, it's pretty complicated. And that's what I love about it, is that it's different every single time. It's always changing, wind's moving around, and we have to adjust. So we can sail for pleasure, and that's super fun. And we can also do it in a racing, competitive way, which I do both. So I just love it. Anyway, if you want to, we could keep and just talk about that the whole time if you wanted. But
we could just talk about sailing.
Yeah.
Well, what I love is that, to me, and I've done some sailing too, which I know we've talked about, is that you can't actually go in a straight line to your destination in a sailboat most of the time, right? Often you have to zig and zag and you're constantly course correcting.
100%. So when you think about it, the wind is always, if you're going upwind, so you're going against the wind. And so you're facing adversity or the wind, and the way the wind works with your sails and your boat is that you can never go straight into the wind. You have to go the most efficient way, which would be about at a 45-degree angle upwind. And so again, learning, and is it on the right side or on the left side, which is better? And then there's ways to look for the best wind and to be observant and looking out on the water for where the wind patterns are so that you choose the right side to go upwind, which again, being observant, always looking out for what is the best way forward. Again, a metaphor for business, certainly.
Absolutely. There's so many metaphors, and it's not like you can get out there and go, well, I made a mistake, and you just float aimlessly. Like, you have to get back to dock. So there is those lessons too, and like not giving up and finding a new path, finding a different way, and being able to pivot. Literally, it's such a great example of how you can also do that in business.
If there's one thing I learned about sailing in general is that whatever the game plan was before you left the dock, 100% of the time it will be different once you get out there. And so why? Well, because you need to read your charts, what's under the water, are there obstacles, certainly where you're going, understanding any shore obstacles, etc. And then the wind will constantly change. And so you need to adjust every single minute, especially in a racing situation. You're always adjusting your sails for getting the most efficiency from the boat. And the other part that I've learned is that something will most likely break. So depending, sometimes nothing breaks, but you can expect that something can break. So it could be maybe a mechanical problem with your engine. It could be possibly something with your sails that breaks. So you need to be pivoting, you were mentioning, and be agile in saying, okay, when this comes up, what do I do now? It's always be thinking quickly on your feet. And then most of the time, unless you're solo sailing, you're with a team. How do we collaborate together I call it a pressure cooker, because when things go wrong, you need to be able to understand what to do. And if you've prepped as a team pretty well, then you can coordinate the solution. But if you haven't, then it really can go sideways if you have the wrong crew and if you haven't prepared properly. So again, many learning opportunities in sailing, which reflects very similarly in a business.
Yeah, you could just replace everything you said with a business.
Pretty much. And I really think that that's what draws me towards it. And when I started ocean sailing, it was at a different level totally. So smaller boats, yes, this is true. But if you get into like trouble, you have some people close by. You even have maybe the Coast Guard or someone from the yacht club could come by and help you out, or another boat. But if you're on the ocean and you're crossing an ocean, which I've done, and you're halfway through in the middle of the North Atlantic and your sail rips in half, which again happened to us, what do you do now? Your main sail is like the weight that propels you moving forward. You kind of look at each other as a crew and say, well, can't get off the boat. I'm in the middle of the ocean. What do we do now? Right? And so it's like, you just got to rally and just figure it out. And this is, again, the hardest thing I've ever done, because I'm in a situation, and I put myself in that situation where I had to be mentally, physically prepared, but I know that something's going to go sideways and I'm just going to have to deal with it, which again, prepares me for anything else that's coming around in life. Because truth be told, this happens to us all the time. There's these situations or circumstances that we can't foresee, and we just need to deal with them. And so the resilience and all this good stuff. So it's good practice. And I have a good team around me that we do rally and figure things out. So that's why I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah, there's some great lessons in that. I think you mentioned resilience. And I think it's easy something to happen in your life and you just get paralyzed. But it's like, it's okay to kind of freeze for a moment, but at some point and fairly quickly, you've got to figure out what that next step is. And that can be a challenge.
One of the things that is constant with me when I get on the ocean is that my body needs time to adapt. And so my research around this, like seasickness, is that 85% of the population gets some form of seasickness, 15% of the population, nothing at all. I'm one of this 85%, and there's different degrees of it, but it takes me about 2 days to get my sea legs. And what I mean by that is for me to feel that I'm not feeling tired and weak and a little bit of seasickness. Now, so that's how I adapt. It takes me about 2 days because we weren't designed to live on the water. However, we can adapt and perform at a very high level. but it does take time. So I remind myself that anything net new that I've never faced before, there's going to be maybe like this getting your sea legs type of situation where the perseverance of not giving up early, which most people do, of just saying, hey, there's an adaptation period, and then all of a sudden it's going to kick in and you can perform. And so I remind myself of that lesson every time I get on the water, because it's terrible. I mean, I'm not feeling great. And then around day 2, like it starts, I know now my body adapts and I can really do much better and enjoy it a lot more too.
Yeah. So adaptability, resilience, it teaches you so many things.
Absolutely.
And I'll share this quick story before we move off of sailing, although I'm sure you can share many more sailing metaphors. We went sailing last summer with our youngest son on a borrowed sailboat. My husband's much more experienced than I am. He's a skipper, and my son is, crew. We're out there and we're going. It's like we're doing maybe 8 knots. We've got great wind. We've got some tunes that we're chilling. Like everything's working. And then suddenly we got overpowered. The wind changed and it was like kind of all hell broke loose because we're healing. Then we had a thing with food in it underneath in the boat, and it fell off and it opened up and food is everywhere. And I'm down there and I'm getting tossed around the boat as I'm trying to clean up this mess. Then I got seasick.
Yeah.
We couldn't reel in, something wasn't working, something got jammed. So we're just it went from this beautiful idyllic thing. And you could say that in business too. Things are trucking along just great. And then something like tariffs happens or whatever. And you're oh man, something big just happened and you lose control and you have to figure out. And we pulled it together and obviously we made it back, but there were some rough moments in there when and it was literally all hands on deck.
Yeah, and you're right. It's this big gust of wind that comes along, knocks the boat over, and then, something we maybe not had secured inside makes a secondary issue. And then you have to go down there, but then you're not used to it. And as soon as you go down below and you put your head down, that's when the seasickness kicks in. So all of a sudden, all these things. And again, same thing in business all the time. Now, I always, when in my coaching practice, what I coach towards is if we know these things are going to happen, then we can start looking forward and trying to predict what could it be like and how can we practice some of these things beforehand so that if this happens, then we can react certain ways. Now, no, we don't overdo this because we need to run the business, but certainly there are some things as a team that we can practice ahead of time so that we can be a little bit more prepared and ready when these things happen. And then in time, we just adjust as you did and figured it out.
We figured it out. And that is also life. That's business.
Yeah.
We're kind of all just figuring it out as we go.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree.
So let's talk a little bit about your business that you sold. I know you've built many businesses, but you had one, your most recent, I believe, was bought by this global aerospace firm. Can you share about your exit story, whatever you can, and maybe some of the lessons you learned that you can share with the people listening that might be considering exiting their business? Sure.
So I feel that I got into business at my mid-20s and I evolved my largest business, which was this aerospace business. We were creating specialty coatings on turbine engines and landing gears, very specialized. I was the business guy, and we had a lot of really smart people, PhDs and engineers running the business. And one of the things that I had learned that one day, if I ever did want to exit, that a strategic buyer was always the best type of buyer. And so I was explaining this, and I thought, yeah, that makes sense because they would tend to want to pay more. And so the pivotal moment of why I ended up selling was that there's different reasons. And by the way, for all the listeners that are thinking about exiting, it's not a matter of if you will or not, it's when. Because the truth is, one of the things I've learned is that we will all exit our business eventually. And so the drastic piece, the part of it, not to be morbid or anything, but you could die and then you exit, right? And that's just a reality. Now, if you've prepared properly, there's a good transition. If not, then it's not great. And then if you work at the other, on the spectrum and go down the other ways, you could exit, but not on your terms, as an example, which was not my case. But that could be that you have no choice because of a life circumstance. You might get ill or there may be a big major event in your life that like makes you exit. In my case, it was kind of in the middle where I was no longer really getting along with one of my partners. And so it wasn't pleasurable anymore going to work and trying to strive for more. Still okay, but it was not fantastic. And so we were able to have a open and honest conversation around this is no longer working for us and we should do something. So either I'll buy my partner out or he'll buy me out, or we could find a strategic buyer. And the good story or ending of the story is that we did, the timing for us was really good around finding a strategic buyer where they had a need for the type of business that we had, and there was just a good match there. And so that's kind of how the transition happened for me. But in my coaching practice now, what I hope for my clients that are looking to exit is that they become exit ready way before they actually exit their business. So it's not about thinking about exiting, it's more around being ready to exit. And little did I know what that whole process was going to look like for me. It was more of I was never thinking about selling until it was no longer really fun in the business. And then when I made that decision, I was not ready. However, because it was an aerospace business, we were ISO certified. Therefore, we had a lot of processes in place so that our due diligence and our data room was really well set up because of the type of business that we were running. But I didn't even know this until I actually got into the process.
Hey founders, quick shameless plug for the sponsor of this podcast and my company, Lab Creative, where we help ambitious founders untangle their personal brand from their business so they can position the company to sell and build a personal brand for their next evolution. If that sounds like you, head to labcreative.ca to check out our work and to book a call with me. Or if you want to just dip your toe in first, grab a copy of the Founders Brand Playbook. It's our free step-by-step guide to building a brand that attracts premium buyers and creates opportunities for you post-sale. You can download it at labcreative.ca/playbook. What you said is so true. It's not just about 18 months before you're like ready to start talking to M&A firms and lawyers. Like it starts long before that. It's not just the 18 months or a year before you want to sell. It's years before to set up your financials. And from my perspective, to set up your brand, to make sure it's not too founder centric. And how do we, build all of these systems so that when you want to sell, or if you have to sell, like you said, because of an illness or a life event, that everything is ready to go. It's not just for those people who are like, I want to do this imminently. Everybody should be thinking about an exit plan from the beginning, but it's not always the case.
It makes so much business sense to do it that way. My situation was like not getting along with my partner so well. And then we actually received an unsolicited offer for the business. We were approached. And then we just thought it makes sense because we're not getting along, but were we ready? No way, not even close. So one of the lessons learned there was that because we had to fast track it, what we did do, because it took us 18 months to close, which is crazy we weren't a huge business, but this was way too long. But again, we were dealing with a multinational company. They have board meetings and everything was delayed and slow. They were from the UK. So by the time the information got back and forth, it just was so long. So one of the things I was advised on was, Shelby, put someone in between you and the buyers so that they do the negotiations for you so that you stay focused on running the business. Otherwise, it can go sideways really quickly. And I'm so thankful that I was able to do that. So I wasn't emotionally involved in the negotiations and also was able to stay focused on really hitting all my numbers and continuing to grow the business. Otherwise, it would have been so easy to get distracted otherwise. And so that was a really good lesson. And I took, because I'm an EO member involved in YPO, there's forum groups, and I had a forum group that was able to help me through that and advise me. Some of my members had gone through this before, so they were able to help me through it. So that was a really, really good lesson for me.
Yeah. So did you have a long buyout or earn out, or did you leave as soon as the purchase happened?
Great question. And again, this is a lesson learned from some of my friends. if there's one thing that I remember from that whole conversation, it's cash is king. And so cash is king, all the cash up front as much as possible. Who knows what can happen on the exit if there's a part of the compensation of selling is related to downline compensation. And so we were heavy on the upfront buyout or payment. And then there was kind of that carrot in front of us, a performance portion, but it was minimal. And lo and behold, how did we know that after we sold, there was a lull in the aerospace industry where everything, there's cycles. And so the cycle took a downturn, and a lot of the programs we were working on got delayed. I tapped into some of that bonus, but it was minimal. And if it was heavy, if the deal would have been heavy on compensation after the sale, I think it would have been way different for me. So cash up front as much as possible is the way to go.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for sharing that, because I think that I've heard so many stories of the long earn out, and then you become an employee in your business and you don't like how they're running it, or something like that happens and you don't actually get that full amount down the road. And I think also what you shared is putting somebody in the negotiation seat is such great advice, because I've also seen that it almost becomes, or it does become, a second full-time job in the negotiation. And so you're running the business and trying to deal with the selling of the business and all of that. And it leads to burnout. And if suddenly your business suffers because you're trying to sell it, maybe the deal won't go through.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, there's a lot going on there. And I also understand, as a buyer, you want to hold on and try to have that earnout in place. And in our case, we just negotiated really hard. We could have probably got a little bit more money out of the deal if we wanted to, but that was really important for us not to have that big earnout at the end.
Yeah, that sounds like you did a good thing for yourselves. Let's talk a bit more about the work that you do today. And I know you've facilitated hundreds of these retreats for EO and YPO, and this is your jam. You were a certified EOS implementer, and then you created your own system because you saw that there was something missing. And I'd love to hear what that looks like, what you felt maybe was missing, and why you developed this new system.
Well, yeah, I'm excited to talk about this, because one of the things that I realized in my deep research around how can I help my business friends was to keep it super simple. So I still love EOS. I still love scaling up. I know Vern Harnish really well. I mentioned these folks, and also EOS being a great system, in that they were created like about 20 years ago plus, and based on the foundational truths of running a business. And so that will never change. However, as I was bringing those tools to my clients, eventually they looked at me and said, okay, we've learned all these basic things and they're working for us and it's really helpful. And our business is continuously evolving. And they were asking me for, can you help us evolve with evolved tools? What's next, in other words? And I said, well, I don't really have much after this. And so they would then go and seek out other experts that would help them in their business. And I thought that's interesting, because I would like to establish this great rapport. I'm a trusted advisor to my clients, but there was a limit to the tool set, if you will, from these foundational systems. And so I realized that as our companies are unique and they are evolving, it's important to have updated tools. And so I seek out, I'm a lifelong learner. I'm always learning, getting more certifications. And so I take at least 2 new certifications per year. I just actually was on a 30-minute Zoom call before this podcast and learning about AI Kickstart. And so I'm always learning. So we're bringing in these tools. And so my clients benefit from what's the latest and greatest that Shelby's been able to seek out as far as a learning opportunity, so they can implement it in their business like right away. So it's not about adding more and more tools. It's really around meeting our clients where they are and what is it that they need right now. And we probably have a tool that we've learned and put together to help them through that specific area. So going back to the sailing analogy, it's what happens when your sail rips or something is caught and your sailboat's not going where it should. Well, what's the latest technique to be able to fix that? And so that's what I do is with my team, because we are building a community of coaches, always looking to add great coaches with us. to bring these great tools. So the foundational tool set is always there in the system we bring forward, and then we curate these specific tools and meet our clients where they are. And right now we are also looking at how can we use AI to help our clients run their businesses. And again, it's a first, I guess, stage is about bringing them how to use it, eventually probably some AI agents to help them plug and play right in their businesses as well. So continuously evolving. So I'm excited about that for sure.
Yeah, I love it. And something that I know about you in our conversations is that you really blend business strategy with the personal stuff, the personal transformation and things like health. And I remember we talked deeply about that the last time we connected, about how our health is so important in that process, and the mental and the physical. And so I would love for you to share your thoughts on like why that piece is maybe missed, but also why it's so important when it comes to scaling or selling or pivoting.
Yeah, great question again. This is something that is so deep in me as well. One of the things that I have been reflecting on in the last few years is that, if you will, quote unquote, secrets to that I have learned in running a business or as an entrepreneur. And so certainly you need to have a business operating system for your business to make sure that that's dialed in. You need a peer-to-peer group, which is the forum work that I do through EO and YPO. And both of those have tremendously helped me in a business. And the third portion is the health side. And health is the physical, mental, spiritual piece of an entrepreneur. And one of the things that happened to me was when I was in my mid 40s, I was diagnosed with a tumor on my liver the size of a small grapefruit. I had a major operation, and it was right when I had raised over $1.5 million. I had put my house for collateral, and all of a sudden I have to go 2 kids, and I have 3. And at that time, I just had a new baby. And so all these things are happening. And I truly feel that part of the illness or that tumor was probably related to the major stress that I was going through. It was accumulated, etc. And so again, one thing is for sure as an entrepreneur, because of the stress that we go through, there will be some major health issues that will come your way if you do not deal with how you manage your life on a health side of things. So I'm super big right now on how do I control my stress and everything around it. So again, the physical, mental, spiritual. So stay as healthy as possible, movement. So I seek, and again, I bring this to my clients if they are willing and they're interested in it. I have a personal interest. That's why I have a Whoop band. So I have all my data and I geek out a little bit on what is actually happening, because HRV is a great way, heart rate variability is a great way to understand your internal stress, because I don't in my head feel stressful or stressed, but my data tells me that my body is stressed. And so I look for ways to be able to stay as healthy as possible, because if I don't, I know that everything else doesn't actually happen. And so it should really, and it is a priority in my life these days, is making sure that my health is dialed in. And so I have a morning routine, evening routine. I pay attention to my diet. I'm always evolving. I do have a supplement regime, and I'm always looking at how can I improve this. I have to kind of mention that my spirituality is really important as well. I'm a man of faith. And for that, I feel that meditation, prayer for me is also really, really helpful in being able to manage this entrepreneurial life that I've decided to walk on.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. I totally agree with everything you said. I think that the health piece is so important, which is why I know I really resonated when we had that last conversation. I remember I'd herniated a couple of discs in my back earlier this year, and I was in rough shape. And I remember talking with a friend, and he said, you know, a man who has his health dreams of many things. A man who doesn't have his health dreams of only one thing. Man, woman, you insert whichever you want. But I was like, yeah, all I'm looking for right now is to be healthy, because that health allows me to do everything else. And that is why I use the word vitality as one of my desires in my life. And so that vitality that I'm striving for is health, and it's physical and mental and emotional, because that will allow me to do everything else that I desire to do in my life. It's like a foundational piece.
It is foundational. And as a younger entrepreneur, that was so far off my radar that I just wanted to build a business. I wanted to prove myself, and I was going hard, and it caught up to me. And now I'm 57. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling that the retirement is not part of like my vocabulary. I just want to keep doing this because I love it. It doesn't feel like work. This kind of when I help other entrepreneurs, and if I can help younger entrepreneurs understand how to dial in their health early and just get in a routine and in a pattern, that will serve them so much when they're a little older in their lives. That's one of my passions. So one of the three pillars that I really bring to entrepreneurs is the health component. I do make that first and then everything else after.
Absolutely. I think that's the right order.
Yeah.
So legacy is a big theme on this podcast. Obviously, it's called legacy branding. So I would love to know, Shelby, your definition of legacy and what the legacy is that you're creating for yourself.
Thank you for the question. It's actually a question that I've been pondering and reflecting, meditating on for the last, I would say, 12 months. And I've come to realize that a big part of who I am has to do with what am I going to leave behind once I'm no longer here? And so is it the short-term thinking or the long-term? And so legacy for me is how can I leave this world better than when I came into it? And I think that's kind of the lens that I look through. And sometimes I challenge my clients around their purpose and their whys. Simon Sinek wrote a whole book on it. And it's kind of connected to your core values and who you are and your purpose. And for me, legacy is a big piece of that. So I am also realizing that I'm a subject matter expert in some business content and in what we talked about already. And so I figured, well, this is building a company and a coaching community that will outlast me is kind of what I'm all about. And so with some foundational truths around running a solid business with purpose and not making it about me, making it about this opportunity to share information with other entrepreneurs to, again, fast track some of their learning, best practices. So ultimately they can live the best life possible. And people might hear that and go, yeah, whatever. And I'm like, no, it's not whatever. It's 100% what I am truly passionate about and feel in my heart that this is me making a difference. And if that resonates with some entrepreneurs, great. And it doesn't with some. They just say, yeah, whatever, it's not for me. And that's fine. That's okay. Legacy for me is really what will surpass me moving forward. And certainly I have 3 children. And so that's just legacy right there. However, what can I also leave them moving forward? And what will they inherit from me that they can use in a positive way? And so that's kind of like my headspace. I'm not sure if I answered the question that you had, but yeah, that's kind of how I see it. By the way, it's not like a hard, like I know what it is. I'm still evolving through this, but it is definitely helpful for me to use as a filter to when I'm building something. Well, I ask the question, will this outlast me? Is it part of my legacy? If it's not, then maybe I don't need to do it.
I love that that's a lens that you look through. I think that's a great thing. And thank you for sharing. I think that's a beautiful legacy that you're creating for yourself. And I agree that it is something that will evolve and change potentially over time. And you mentioned about retirement and not this traditional sense of it. And I just had a guest on, Derek Coburn, talking about his book, Let's Retire Retirement. And I think so many entrepreneurs feel this way, that like my husband and I all the time talk about the fact that we don't desire to retire in this traditional sense of it, maybe change how we work as we get older, but ultimately we have a lot to give. And I don't want to just be hitting a golf course, or not that I golf, but I want to be a contributing member of society. I have a lot to give and to share. And I think that is a common theme I find among entrepreneurs, and that maybe their definition of legacy and what they're creating is different, but that we desire to continue to work on build things for the rest of our lives.
This is why I'm also on this podcast with you. I mean, in my past, I've been a little bit a very private person, and my wife looked at me a while back. She said, "So you're a business coach, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Well, who's your coach?" And I thought, that's awesome. And so I feel now that every great business coach has a coach. And so my coach has been encouraging me to share my gifts. And when I'm not, I'm actually doing the people that I can influence, a disfavor for not actually sharing these truths that I have learned. You will probably hear me on other podcasts, and I'm putting myself out there on social media more, and I'm getting used to that. And I'm a little bit late in the game, and so I'm trying to learn as quickly as possible, but certainly this is a little bit uncomfortable for me. I'm not used to it. However, I keep reminding myself this is part of the legacy. This is part of me sharing my truths, and again, making sure that I'm not doing a disfavor and keeping all this information like secrets just to me, which is what one of the persons I was coaching was kind of telling me. He was explaining to me, "Shelby, it's almost like you've got these secrets that on how to run a business, and by sharing them, I'm now privy to these secrets, and I just have to apply them and get the results." And I was thinking, yeah, but I don't want to make them secrets. I want them to be public and share them. So that's kind of my path forward now, is how do I do that in the best way possible? Not making it about Shelby, making it about really the person listening. And so when I'm on a podcast like this, it's really around, these great stories about maybe what I've done and et cetera, but it's really around what can you learn from this to take away and actually apply it. And it's not about, these are great ideas. No. There's some specific things you can do today to actually make a difference in your life. And again, to live a better life in general. Like, why not? I think that we were created to be able to live to the fullest. We have gifts. And so why not tap into our full potential? And so hopefully I can help with that.
Absolutely. And I'll share with you that one of the main reasons why I do what I do is to help people share their gifts with the world. And
well,
so thank you for saying yes to being a guest and for sharing your gift. So we're both winning in this situation.
That's fantastic.
So Shelby, how can people find out more about you and learn how they can work with you and the Boss 360 system? I'd love for you to share that.
Great. Well, thank you for the opportunity. Easiest way is really go on the website. And so it's bos360.ca. So Boss 360. That is the business operating system piece. If you want to know a little bit more about me, so my other website would be nav360. So like navigation. So NAV360.ca, and there you'll learn a little bit more about the health side, a little bit more around the peer-to-peer learning forum, and of course Boss 360. So the three pillars are there, and more information on the website is where you can find out more about me. Or if you want to reach out directly, Shelby at NAV360.ca, Shelby at NAV360, and I'd be more than happy to connect in that way as well.
Amazing. Thank you. We'll make sure to add all of those links in the show notes. Shelby, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your gift and your stories. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
It was amazing to be with you. Thank you so much, Lorraine. That's great.
Thanks for tuning into the Legacy Branding Podcast. I hope today's episode has inspired and empowered you on your journey to building a brand that truly matters. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other founders who you think would benefit from listening. And if you're ready to take the next step in building your legacy brand, visit our website, labcreative.ca, to learn more and book a call. Don't forget to join us next time for more conversations that will help you navigate your transition and create your legacy. Until then, I'm Laura Beauperlant.